And it's the secret ingredient in William's new gin, and it can be toxic if consumed in high concentrations. Suddenly, the pieces clicked. And then, the poisoning of Simone Sawyer, a renowned spirits critic who had been invited to the tasting and was found poisoned with tetrazoline, a key ingredient in eye drops, not Labrador tea. "Melanie," Barty exclaimed, "you stole your father's idea. He was going to announce it, giving you credit, but you thought he was cutting you out, and you poisoned Simone to frame Jaden, who you suspected of killing your father for the Japanese deal." Melanie, however, just stared, her face a mask of disbelief. "My father, he was thrilled with my suggestion? He was going to leave everything to me? I just saw an opportunity. I thought he was going to humiliate me again, make fun of me for trying to break away." It turned out that Alan, in a fit of rage after William had called him a belly-aching little boy, had struck his father with a gin bottle, assuming he was dead. He then fled, leaving William to stumble into the vat. Melanie, finding her father unconscious, and believing Jaden was responsible for the Japanese deal and her father's impending disinheritance, had seen an opportunity. She had drowned her father, then tried to frame Jaden for both murders by poisoning Simone with eye drops and planting black spray paint in Alan's car, used to cover surveillance cameras, before poisoning Simone. "You are under arrest, Melanie," Barty declared, as Barnaby nudged a bottle of Melanie's Labrador tea hand cream towards him, as if to say, the truth was in her hands all along. "And Barnaby," Barty added, "is no moot. He's my partner, and he has the best nose of all of us." Barnaby merely yawned, then licked a stray drop of gin from the floor. Chapter 6. The Great Trail Tango and the Canine Cover-Up. Barely a week later, Port Haven was rocked by yet another bizarre incident. The murder of Malcolm Carter, a low-level criminal with a penchant for bad poetry, found in a secluded hiking trail near Cape Royal. Barty and Barnaby were called to the scene. "Another murder, Barnaby." Barty sighed, surveying the picturesque but now grim landscape. "This town is becoming a magnet for mayhem. Or, perhaps, a magnet for my peculiar brand of detective work." Barnaby, however, was distracted by a particularly pungent patch of wild blueberries. The prime suspect was Tyler Craner, son of Jason Craner, Port Haven's notorious drug kingpin. Tyler was, according to Gadget Giggles, all his dad's ruthless tendencies, but half the brains. He'd been identified by an anonymous witness, Wyatt Donner, who had called 911 from a payphone near the trailhead. "Tyler Craner," Barty mused. "A chip off the old block, eh? A chip that's perhaps a little cracked." Barnaby, meanwhile, had found a discarded, half-eaten blueberry muffin near the crime scene. He presented it to Barty with a hopeful whine. "He wants a muffin, Gadget," Barty translated. "Such a discerning palate, my Barnaby." Wyatt Donner, the witness, was a nervous young man who had fled into the wilderness, hoping to escape the entire ordeal. Barty and Barnaby, armed with one of Wyatt's well-worn hiking socks, which Barnaby found particularly offensive, set off on the trail. The hike was arduous. Barty, not accustomed to such physical exertion, stumbled frequently, blaming a particularly aggressive pebble. Barnaby, however, was in his element, sniffing every tree, every rock, every discarded snack wrapper. They eventually found Wyatt, huddled by a makeshift campfire, looking utterly terrified. "I saw it," Wyatt stammered, his eyes wide. "A moose, a huge moose with antlers. It was coming after me." Barty patted his shoulder. There, my boy. It was just a moose." "But what about the murder? What did you see?" Wyatt recounted the tale. Tyler Craner, accompanied by his dim-witted accomplice, Elroy, had been meeting Malcolm Carter. Carter was trying to blackmail Tyler, threatening to expose Tyler's plan to hijack his father's drug shipment. Tyler, in a fit of pique, had shot Carter. "The moose was just a distraction, Barnaby," Barty declared. "A red herring, if you will. A rather large, antlered red herring." Barnaby, however, was sniffing at a strange, almost imperceptible scent in the air. A metallic tang mixed with something vaguely floral. He barked, then began to dig furiously near Wyatt's camp, unearthing a small, ornate silver locket. "He's found a locket, Wyatt," Barty exclaimed. "Such a sentimental dog." Suddenly, a shot rang out. A woman, tall and severe, emerged from the trees, a hunting rifle clutched in her hands. "Wyatt Donner," she snarled, her voice as cold as a Port Haven winter. "You're coming with me, you." Barty, ever the quick thinker, or perhaps just reacting instinctively, shouted, "She's a killer, Barnaby, a professional, and she's got a rifle. Run." Barnaby, however, was already charging the woman, not with aggression, but with a strange, almost playful intent. He barked, then snatched the locket from Barty's hand and began to play a game of keep away with the hit woman. "She's trying to kill our witness, Barnaby," Barty yelled. "Not play fetch." The woman, Serena Rickett, a notorious hit woman from Halifax, was surprisingly flustered by Barnaby's antics. She fired a shot, missing Barnaby by inches, but grazing Barty's arm. "I've been hit, Barnaby," Barty cried dramatically. "A flesh wound, but a wound nonetheless." Barnaby, however, had led Serena on a merry chase, finally cornering her near a precarious cliff edge. She slipped, tumbling down the bluff, where she was apprehended by a waiting police team led by Chief Donovan. "Good work, Detective Bumble," Chief Donovan said, surveying the scene. "And good work, Rex." "It's Barnaby, Chief," Barty corrected, wincing as Penny Piffle bandaged his arm. "And he's a dab hand at playing keep away with armed assassins." It turned out the silver locket Barnaby had found belonged to Serena Rickett. Inside, there was a tiny, faded photograph of Jason Craner, the drug kingpin. Serena was Jason's go-to for making problems disappear. She had been sent to eliminate Wyatt. Elroy, Tyler's accomplice, swayed by a visit from his distraught daughter, orchestrated by Barty, of course, had flipped, providing crucial testimony against Jason and Tyler. With Wyatt's eyewitness account and Elroy's confession, the Craners were finally brought down. Another case closed. "Barnaby," Barty declared, sipping a lukewarm coffee back at the station. "Another victory for justice, and another triumph for my discerning palate for blueberry muffins." Barnaby merely yawned, then nudged the locket with his nose, as if to say, "Sometimes the smallest clues lead to the biggest catches." Chapter 7. Port Haven's Peculiar Peace and the Perpetual Puzzler. Port Haven, for a brief, blissful moment, enjoyed a peculiar peace. The teacup terror was over, the gin-soaked grudge settled, and the trail tangle untangled. Barty Bumble, much to his own surprise, found himself lauded as a hero. He even got a certificate of commendation from the mayor, which he proudly displayed next to his collection of novelty spoons. "Barnaby, old chap," Barty declared, polishing his certificate. "It seems Port Haven truly appreciates our unique brand of crime-solving. My deductive reasoning. Your enthusiastic sniffing." Barnaby, curled up on Barty's worn armchair, merely snored softly, dreaming of blueberry muffins and elusive squirrels. But peace, in Port Haven, was a fleeting thing. Barty knew it wouldn't last. There was always another peculiar problem, another perplexing puzzle, another pun waiting to be made. And so, as the sun set over the leaning lighthouse, casting long, dramatic shadows across the Port Haven coastline, Barty Bumble, detective of the Port Haven Police Department, and Barnaby, his perpetually blundering but surprisingly brilliant canine companion, stood ready for the next case. Ready for the next adventure, ready for whatever eccentricities Port Haven had to throw at them. Because in a town like Port Haven, where lawyers drowned in gin, hit women played fetch, and autistic boys drew their way to justice, there was never a dull moment. And for Barty Bumble, that was just the way he liked it. As long as Barnaby was by his side, occasionally offering an insightful bark, or perhaps just a request for a liver snap, Port Haven's peculiar peace would always be guarded by its most peculiar pair. The end. For now, Kopi Oshem. Chapter 1. The Case of the Grumbling Groom and the Vanishing Virtuoso. The perpetually fog-kissed dog